All right, welcome everybody. I got another God one for you today. Have you ever felt ashamed of your past? Like your past was too messy, too broken, too dark to ever be used for good? Anybody ever felt that way before? Awesome, thank you. What if I told you the worse your story is, the more glory God gets from your transformation? Your past is not something to hide. It's something God is going to use. So the title of today's message is Your Story is for God's Glory. Everybody say that. My story is for God's glory. And the subtitle is How Your Awful Past Reveals His Awesome Power. So the false belief that we're carrying around, if you're thinking that God can't, that my past is just too messy. I'm just too broken to be used by God. So that's the false belief that's creating that, is that God can't use me because of what I've done. But the truth is, your story is for His glory. Your past is the very thing that proves His power. So everybody repeat after me. I'm not ashamed of my awful story. I'm using it to highlight His awesome glory. My testimony is proof that God transforms people. My story is not about me. It's about the people who still need Him. My past is my platform to show the world how awesome my God is. Y'all feel that? Genesis 50:20, this was about, it says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Satan meant it for evil, but God will use it for good. Satan he was trying to trap you in your story for all of eternity. He wanted to trap you in the story of how worthless you are, of how not enough you are forever. And so the story is how he traps you. He gets you to believe a lie that isn't true. And then that story that you're already living, you were born into sin. Sin is the false perspective, a perceived separation from God. I'm not enough. And so we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So we manifest our reality with a subconscious belief system. So I'm not enough. So, of course, my world is not enough. And it's going to reflect that back to me. And we go where we live emotionally. We use our environment to get ourselves there, even as little children, even as infants. Even as an infant, we're still created in the likeness and image of God. We still got the full power of God, but it's turned against ourselves. So we're still creating. Even as an infant is creating to the same degree that an adult is. And so when we're born into sin, false perspectives, that sin, those beliefs are being used to birth worlds of lies and illusions. But we go where we live emotionally. We use our environment to get ourselves there. So the thought leads to the emotion, leads to the action, leads to the results. The result of the fruit, the thoughts are the seeds, the mind is the garden. And so we're born into sin, the false perspectives that we inherited all the way from Adam and Eve, all the way down. And then there's like all the different crazy aspects, different colors of sin that there are, the 50 shades of gray, the 5 billion shades of gray of disconnection, of double-mindedness, and all the different ways that it shows up. So whatever the unique sins got passed down through your generation, like imagine the tree, right? Their generational tree, it just kept growing. The sin started to spread and branch off. And so whatever branch you're in, there's like the original sin is scarcity mindset. That was the original, that I'm not enough, because the serpent says to Eve, hey, if you'll eat this, it'll make you like God. But God had already made Adam and Eve in His likeness and image. So we already were like God. So they believed a lie, took the action from the lie to try to become like God, which all that did was left what was real in the pursuit of what appears to be. So left the truth and entered into a lie. And so, but it was, I'm not enough because I'm not like God, and I got to figure out how to be like God so I can be enough. And so that's a scarcity mindset, and that was the root of all evil. But then that produced the whole tree as the branch. So Adam and Eve, that sin then got passed on, but it got passed on and it branched out into all these different crazy sins, all these different flavors of the false perspectives. But all of them carry, I'm not enough. And then they've got all the other stuff that comes off of that as well. So your lineage, you've got a specific, you've got not enough, I'm not enough in there, but then there's also your unique flavor of that it branched off into. And there's many. You got there's the trunk, and then there's a branch, and then there's branches off the branch, and then branches off the branches, and the twigs. And so wherever you're at, you've got the whole trunk, you got the roots, the trunk, you got the seed, you got the whole branch that you came off of, and then you got the branch that came off of that, and then you got the branches off that, and then you got the twigs. You're carrying all those sins as soon as you're born. You're born in those. And then we instantly start manifesting. Manifest doesn't mean to create it. It means to make obvious what is already there. But what's wrong is always available, so is what's right. So we start instantly manifesting what's wrong, what isn't. Instead of being able to see what is, we're seeing what isn't. We're living in an upside down, backwards, insane world. We're born into that. And so that specific sin that we were born in, it's a story that manifests a reality, and then that reality Satan is using to reinforce the story. He's imprisoning you with a story, with a lie. It's a story that you made up that you believe to be true, and then the story that he's got you imprisoned in is manifesting a reality that reinforces the story. And Satan meant the story for evil and the reality for evil to keep you imprisoned forever, but God will use it for his glory. God will use it for good. God will use the story and the reality that got born out of that story. He will use all of it for good and for his glory. And the worse the story, the more his glory. So, don't be ashamed of the darkness that you came out of. Glorify God by sharing the depth of the darkness that he was able to come into. Okay, don't be ashamed of this story. Don't be ashamed of the darkness you came out of. Be grateful for the depth of darkness that God came into to get you. So you got a before God story of trials, and we'll call that BG. And then you've got an after God story of transformation. We'll call that AG. BG before God, AG after God. So a story of trials and then a story of transformation. And the worse the BG story is, the more glory God gets on the AG story. As long as you've transcended the BG story. If you haven't transcended it yet, you're still resisting it, you're going to be stealing God's glory with the AG story. And I'll open up what I mean about that as we go along, but maybe you're already starting to receive that. So people who are still ashamed of the BG story, or if they're still ashamed of the BG story, then they want people from the past to see them in a different way, which means they're still seeing themselves in the BG story way. There's still parts of them that's still stuck inside of that story, and that story's still stuck in them. And so they're wanting the world to change so that they can feel different. If the world would be different, I could feel different. So I want my family, my friends, all the people that saw me in my BG, I want them to see me different, because once they see me different, then I'll feel different. But no. That's not how it works. You've got to believe it before you'll see it. So you've got to know that you truly have been transformed. Once you know that, they may or may not know that. They're not going to know the depth of your transformation until they've gone through theirs. There's a thing that I always share at all of our events, that you know what I know about you, whether you know this or not, you love me. But if you don't know that you love me, it's not because you don't know me, it's because you don't know who. Well, you don't know you, but you don't know you because you don't know God. And so, so people still shamed of the BG story. They're wanting to use their AG story to paint a picture for their BG friends and family, their BG people, so that they will see them different. So then they will finally, now I've got completion. But the completion doesn't come from the outside in, it comes from the inside out. And so what they will do, if they're still ashamed of their BG story, they'll use their AG story for their own glory instead of God's.
They won't use their BG story for God's glory. They'll use their AG story for their own glory. Look how awesome I am now. Look at me now. Look how high I am. Look, I'm on top of the mountain. Look, I'm great now. So now you tell everybody how awesome I am. Tell yourself how awesome I am. Look, I'm awesome. And you're just using it to try to look good so you can feel good. Does that make sense? Everybody following? So put more emphasis on the BG story for God's glory so you can stay humble and so you can connect with the people who are still struggling big time with the sin and not believing that there's a way out. Your AG story, it says seek first to understand, then be understood. If you're trying to go off with your AG story out the gates, then that's not going to do anything for God's glory. That's just trying to make you look good. That's not making God look good. That's making you look good. And it's not doing anything for the people that are still stuck in the darkness. They're like, well, yeah, that's fine for you because you got born with a silver spoon, or they'll find some way to justify it. If you're just showing off your AG story, they'll find a way to justify how you got lucky, how that's for you but not for them. And so they'll use it to disconnect themselves further because they don't know that it was God that did it. When you're using your AG story for your glory, they don't know that God did it. And they're looking at you and they're like, well, I can't do that. Yes, that's true. You can't do that. And I didn't do this. The whole point is, I didn't do this. And you can't do that. You can't do this. You can't get from there to here. You can't create your own bridge. You can't create your own path. You can't create your own way. God will make a way where there is no way. God is the thing. That's what you're waiting for, not for you to be able to develop yourself and grow yourself and do all these awesome things so you're finally good enough, so you're all successful. Your strategies and tactics and tools, it's not about your strategies and tactics and tools. It's about God. He's the one that's going to, he'll use certain strategies, tactics, and tools he'll give you, but it's not about the strategies, tactics, and tools. Those are idols if you take him out of it. Those were gifts that he gave to you to come out, but it was the giver that gave the gift. It was the source that created the resource. And don't leave the source for the resource. The supply. Don't leave the source for the supply. I just looked, his shirt says supply right there. Don't leave the source for the supply. As long as you stay with the source, he's going to give you new supply. But if you leave the source for the supply, then you're going to get stuck in the supply, and that supply is going to run out. Because some that he gave, what got you here is not going to get you there. So no matter where you are in your journey, even if you've got God and you're in your AG story, you still need God moving forward. Like you're never done with God, and he's never done with you. And so if you start getting stuck on the supply that he gave you, the tactics, tools, strategies that he gave you in one season, then you're never going to make it to the next season because he's going to give you something new. But you're so much idolizing and worshiping a thing that's not meant for you anymore. Yesterday's manna is not good enough for today. He gives you a manna every day, a brand new, right from God. He gives you food from God every single day. And each day, now there's a phrase that I'm going to say here. Don't use this there's a thing called transformation for evil. So make sure you use this phrase that I'm going to say for God. It's not about what God said. It's about what God is saying. Your last blessing from God is your biggest obstacle to your next blessing from God. And when I say this, it's not about what God said, it's about what God is saying. God will never contradict himself. So God's word is there for a reason. In the Bible, it's there for a reason. So we always have a litmus test to go back to see, okay, this is what I think God is saying right now. Well, let me go check. And if what you think God is saying right now contradicts what God said then that ain't what God's saying. Maybe you did get a word, but maybe you've interpreted it incorrectly. And so you go back and make sure that you've got the interpretation correct, and then you receive your new word, this living spirit that moves you forward. And so the point being, if you're using your AG story to try to make yourself look better for the people from the past, then you're disconnecting yourself from God, and you're disconnecting the people that you're sharing your story with from God. I mean, you can't actually do that, but you're participating in it because now you've made the gap so big because they're like, well, I can't get there. Because they didn't see the darkness that you went through. They're still in the darkness that you were in, but they didn't see there is you actually descended into more darkness before you came out. Anybody who's got a true AG story, you descended into more darkness than your BG story. Than the people that are in the darkness that you left, you went in deeper darkness than they're in to get to the light. We fall into heaven through the floor of hell. So your BG story includes I fell all the way. I fell all the way. No matter how far you're fallen, you're not too far from God. You haven't fallen too far from God. And in fact, you might need to fall a little bit further to actually receive him, because come to me hot or cold, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. That's what he says. But he's not spitting you out, you're spitting you out, because your comfort is your cage, and you're sitting inside of your comfort zone. Get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable and come out of your cage. Come out of your cage. So don't use who you are now to make yourself look good. Use who you were and who God transformed you into to make him look good. Don't lose who you are now to make you look good. Use who you were, and then you can highlight who you are now, but only for his glory. Not for you to look good, but for him to look good. Look what he did with this. He did this with, I didn't do this with this. He did this with this. And when you do that, that gives the people in the past a way out. I mean, God is their way out, but that opens their awareness to it. That, wait, oh, so you're really not the whole shebang? Like you don't actually have it all get together. God has got it together, and he's putting you together. Well, okay, well, I can do that. If it's not about me being perfect, then maybe I can make it. But you sure look perfect right now. And if it's that, I'm not going to be able to make it. So our BG story is for God's glory. That's the most important part. The BG story is more important than the AG story. The AG story is only there to, it's there as like a light at the end of the tunnel. But you got to come in, use your BG story to reach into where they are so that they can come out. The only thing that we're in control of is our smallness and our suffering. And our comfort is our cage. And so our comfort is our cage, so we're in control of, we become comfortable sitting inside of our smallness and sitting inside of our suffering, because we've decided, well, never again am I going to let the world hurt me like that. So I'm just going to hurt myself like that. And so we just get a new set point. Like, okay, oh, that hurt. I'm not going to get surprised like that anymore. So you keep yourself in your suffering so you don't get shocked. You're like, I've opened my heart. I opened my heart before. Ow, I hit again. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Now I'm just going to stay in my smallness and my suffering, and I can find a way to be comfortable here. I don't know how to be comfortable knowing that at any moment with my heart open I can get hit again. I can be comfortable knowing that I got a thick enough wall, and if I can survive this. I can survive this suffering. So I can be comfortable, even though it's horrible and horrific. I can be comfortable here, and I can survive here. So I'll just stay in this smallness and this suffering, so I can be in control. And I can put some pillows and everything. Once I'm here long enough, I can set up shop and get it comfortable in my suffering and in my smallness. So our comfort is our cage. But God's calling us out of that cage. Our comfort is built on our desire to control. And if you're desiring to control, then you're playing king or queen of your world, which means you're not in God's kingdom, because in a kingdom there's a king, and there's only one king, and you ain't it. And so as long as you're controlling, you're not in a kingdom, which means you're disconnected from God, because he is the king. You're disconnected in your own experience. So the more that you don't want to share your past because you're ashamed of it, the more you're actually still trapped in it. And the less it's being used for what it was meant for in the first place, which was his glory to bring all those behind you out. Yeah, I've got absolutely no problem whatsoever sharing I was a broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist, beach bum. I was a new ager who made God in my own image. I did all the stuff. I mean, I have no problem sharing this story that I was blacked out drunk and I rear-ended a car at a stoplight and I went to jail on my mom's birthday. I have no problem. Any of the stories, there's no issue with it because I'm not stuck in it. You know, one of the things that I always say is what the greatest case for Jesus is that you're a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. We're all a piece of shit. But I'll say that to people. I'm like, this is a really great thing. This is a God thing. It's a God thing. We're pieces of shit. That's awesome. And then people are like, oh, I get it. I'm a piece of shit. Oh, I'm a piece. I'm like, no, not a piece of shit. I'm like, I'm a piece of shit. And I'm still loved. God came and got me. Like it's a great thing. It's not like, no, you're missing it. Like, yes, look at my story. Look how horrible I was. Yes, that's amazing. I could be that horrible, and he still came and got me. You kidding me? I'm not worthy, but I'm worth it. And I believe it. Because if he came through that to get me, wow, how worth it I must be. Wow. So it's a great thing. The story is a great thing. Thank God for your story. Everybody say that. Thank God for my story. Jesus picked the bottom of the barrel. When he was going around picking his disciples, he went for the bottom of the barrel. He didn't go get the people that had it all together. He went to the people that were falling apart, the worst of the worst. And he used them to build his kingdom. He used the bottom of the barrel to build his kingdom. He didn't use the ones that were the best in the world. He didn't go pick the ones that had their big platforms and they had it all together. They had their big shiny armor and all this stuff. No, he went to the bottom of the barrel, the worst of the worst, and said, you'll do. Yep, take that. Yep. Tell me your story. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, you'll do. And he picked them and used them to build his kingdom. The complete opposite of what the world is trying to do. Trying to look good instead of being good. But you can't be good unless you got God. So people are trying to look good, and they're making themselves good, but they're still in the world of duality, good and evil. They're still making themselves good, and they're leaving out God. So the biggest obstacle to a God life is a good one. They're making themselves look really good, but it's for their own glory. But see, God will use the foolish to shame the wise. So they'll know that it's not by their own will, their own design, their own. They don't get self-righteous and prideful. I mean, people are still getting self-righteous and prideful, but that comes before fall, and they will fall if they take any credit whatsoever. I remember when God came and asked for my life, he says, I'm going to give you favor, but you can never take credit for anything ever again. And man, like it's so simple. It ain't easy, but it's so simple. That's it. Just don't take credit anymore. Give all the glory to God. And then the weight lifts off your shoulders. And then you can finally come out of the suffering that you've been in because you made that up, and you can't solve a problem at the level of consciousness created it, and you can't see the picture when you're inside of it. Thank God he came in and brought me out because there was no way for me to get out of my construct. The more I tried to get out of it, the more I created. The more that because I was a highly trained hero, and I really thought I was a good kid. I was a good person because I was saving my mom and saving my family. Wow, look how good, everybody's like, look how good John is. What a good son he is. What a good everything he is. What a good friend he is. He's so good. But all it was a prison. I got more and more disconnected. The more good I did, the more disconnected I got. Because I missed the whole point. It was about God. All good things come from God, not from us. They'll come through us when we tap in, tune into God. And he will use us as conduits for his goodness to come through. But we're not going to create it. He's already created all the good there is. And when we get out of the way, he'll use us to give it. And it's in giving that we receive. So Jesus picked the bottom of the barrel to build his kingdom. Why? So we would all look and say, wow, well, if he can use them, well, he can use me. Well, if he can use that piece of crap, then I'm all right. Has anybody here done anything worse than slaughtering Christians? Has anybody here slaughtered little babies and chopped their heads off and just mutilated a bunch of Christians? Like physically, literally? No? Nobody did that? Hey, well, guess what? Jesus' most influential follower, that's what he did. That's his story. That's Paul's story. He was once Saul. He was literally slaughtering innocent children. That's who he picked to tell the world about him. Like the majority of the New Testament, which is all about Jesus, was written by the guy who was slaughtering innocent children because he hated Jesus so much. That's who God picked. Can you see how the worse the story, the greater God's glory? Jesus' first follower was a whore with 7 demons. Mary Magdalene. She was a whore with 7 demons. If he would have picked some princess, then all the whores in the world that actually, because Jesus said it's not the sick that need the, it's not the healed that need the doctor, it's the sick. He's going to find the sick. So he picked the sick. That's who his people are. He picked the sick. If he would have picked some princess, then all the whores in the world would be like, well, he picked a princess. He didn't pick me. It's a Disney movie, and I don't fit in the Disney movie. I'm not that. I'm not a princess. I'm a piece of crap. So I'm left out. He wanted to make sure no one was left out. That's why he picked a whore with 7 demons to be his first follower. And that's how he picked a Christian killer to be his most influential follower. Everybody following? So Jesus is not ashamed to be seen with who you were. He loves being seen with who you were. Because that's who he is, the one that never doesn't leave the one behind. No matter how far you are, no matter deep and dark you are, he'll come in and get you. He's already shown it. And now, if you got an AG story, share your BG story so that the others that are along the journey behind you know that there's hope for them too. Matthew, so he's not ashamed to be seen with who you were. He wants to be seen with the darkest parts of your story so people will know that they have a chance. Matthew 11:18. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of the tax collectors and sinners, but wisdom is proved right by her deeds. He's hanging out with the worst of the worst. He wants to be seen with them. He wasn't trying to hide it. And they're trying to use this against him. Look, he's hanging out with the drunkards. So he's a drunkard. And he was drinking. Like his first miracle was turn water into wine. But he's not a drunkard. He's transcended it. And he's saying, I can go in there and not be affected by it. I can go in and it doesn't bring me down. When I go in, I bring it up. And so he goes in. And so they're trying to use that against him. Look, he's a drunkard and a glutton, friend of the tax collectors and sinners. So Jesus was never afraid to be seen with sinners because he knew the power of transformation. People say, well, people never change. They don't unless something new comes in. There's in the world that we were born into, there's entropy, which means when it starts, that's the best it's ever going to be. It's like it's working. Like time is trying to tear it down. It's destined for death. So entropy, no matter what has been created, it's destined for death. It's going to be deteriorating over time, and you got to take energy to keep it intact, because that's a world of death and destruction. And even in that world, though, so what we hear is like people never change, and so in that world, it's the only thing that's constant is change. So people are changing on the outside, but they're not on the inside, because the thing that actually is going to change your outside is not a change, but a transformation. And I received that transformation. I was a broke, ignorant, blackout drunk, like literally blackout drunk every night. Not just drunk, blacked out drunk. Doing coke dealer, all kinds of drugs, all kinds of, just miserable, wanting to kill myself, just full of hate, full of pain, full of darkness, full of depression and anxiety, not knowing what to do, lost, confused, trying to look good, but not working. And God came in. I remember Halloween was always my favorite, what's it called? Holiday. My favorite holiday was Halloween. I can't even remember the holidays. It was my favorite holiday. And my favorite thing to do was go to haunted houses. I would like the gnarliest, worst ones. I just loved to go in there. I loved being surrounded by the demons and the darkness because it was all in me. And I felt at home there. And so, but one Halloween, I remember I wore a little priest outfit and I had my little white collar and everything. And I just thought it was so funny. I was getting shit-faced drunk wearing my priest outfit. Just thinking it was so funny. All the stupid Christians, all the stupid God believers. Look how dumb you guys are. And I'm just crapping all over their beliefs, I'm thinking. And I'm thinking I'm laughing, But the whole time, God saw the whole picture. And he already knew that one day I was going to be standing here telling this story. That's why he let me do it. Because he knew one day I would be telling this story for his glory. That he took this broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist beach bum who was laughing at wearing a priest outfit while he was drunk on Halloween, the most pagan holiday there is, the most demonic holiday. I mean, I guess they're all pretty demonic, but anyway, this one's clearly demonic. And he used the worst of the worst thing that I could have done on the worst day, and he used that for his glory. Because I'm completely transformed. I'm an entire, it's so wild, so that wasn't me. That's like that. Who was that? I don't even know what that was. What was that was doing that? I can't even relate to it anymore. Because I'm so far, I've transformed. I've been changed. It's a true transformation. There's no going back. It's impossible. There's no pathway. There's no way into it. There's no way I could ever possibly experience that reality again. There's that identity. It's gone. It's not like I got to stay away from the people that were my friends in that reality. I can be around them all the time. They just can't be around me anymore. And that's part of, I remember I heard Johann, where's he at? I heard Johann's story that I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but he's been living here at this village, and he used to be a drug dealer. He used to be in the dark alleys, in the darkness with all the dark people, and he was out here, and he's been here at the village for a couple months now, and he was out there, and some of his old friends they're like, what have you been up to? And he's like, I live at Earthwaking. And they're like, oh, damn, you live at that place? Oh, crap. And he's like, that's how I know I'm in the right place. Because the dark demon people hate this place. All of his dark demon friends hate this place. They're like, I can't believe you're living there. You got to get out of there. He's like, well, that's how I know I'm in the right place. So I can still go into the darkness with all my people, but they scatter. They just can't. It's like cockroaches when you turn the light on. I just saw you there. So they have no effect or impact over me. So I can go into it now because I'm transformed. There's nothing in me, just like when all the people were afraid of the demons, but when the demons saw Jesus, they were afraid of him. And he said, the reason y'all are afraid of me is because I've got nothing in common with you. I've got nothing in common with those people except for a story of my past. And the purpose of my story of the past is so they can actually come out. That's what gives me the ability to be in there is the story. But the story, I can come in with the story, but the only purpose is so that God can bring them out. So your past struggles, they become your testimony. If you had no past, you'd have no proof of his grace. Your past is the proof. Your poopy past is the proof of his awesomeness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. What? I thought I'm supposed to be getting all big and strong and powerful. No, my power it's in your weakness. Because, I remember talking to this one guy. He's like, man, it's really hard to love God when you don't have anything. You're just at the bottom of the barrel. There's nothing. I'm like, dude, no. That's when it's easy. It's easy to love God when we don't have anything. And this was the guy that was like, he was at a low point in his life. But I was talking, and God gave me a message for him, 2 messages. One, here's what you need to do. It was a prophecy, and he was given of what he was supposed to do, and he did it. And this guy grew up and blew up. Also, when I shared with him, here's what God's telling me to tell you to do, I told him that. I was like, no, the hardest part is to love God when you got everything. And I told him that alongside of giving him the thing that was going to give him everything. And he took that prophecy, that recipe that God gave me to give to him, and he grew and wound up having this, just giant, following, a giant, everything just took off, and he's bringing in millions of dollars. And then God had me have another message for him, and the guy wouldn't even look at me, wouldn't even talk to me, because he's like, well, I got everything that I want now. I don't need to hear from God anymore because I got everything. Why would I need God when I got everything that I want? That's when you need God the most, because that's when your soul's in the most danger, when you got everything. So, my grace is sufficient for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness. Your weakness is where His power shows up the most. If you're still ashamed of your past, you might be using your AG story, your after God story, for your own glory instead of for His. So don't use who you are now to make yourself look good. Use who you were and how God changed you to make Him look good. You're meant to be in the world and not of it. So He's pulled you out of the world, and now you're no longer of that world because you were born first of flesh. And it says no one will receive the kingdom unless they are born again. Born first of flesh, and then born again, second of spirit. So you're a completely new creation. That story. That's not even your past. It's a past of who you're not, but it's just a story now. And now you have the story. And if you don't have your story, it's because your story has you. You're still in it. You're still looking through it. If you don't completely have your story, meaning if you can't share your story in a way that you don't get sucked into it, you don't identify with it, but instead to give to other people so they can know that they're okay, that they're not too screwed up. If you don't have that story completely yet, that story still has you to some degree. And so we're in the world and not of it. So He brings us out of the world, and then He uses our story. He sends our story back into the world, and we're no longer of the world. So here we are of the kingdom, but using the story as the suit to identify. Like whenever the cops, if they want to go send somebody in to try to do a drug bust, and they want to send somebody undercover, that person has to look like a drug dealer, has to smell like a drug dealer, has to talk like a drug dealer, walk like a drug dealer, so they can go in and work their way up in that world. And so that's what your story is, because you were once a drug dealer, you were once a whore, you were once whatever your sin was, whatever your story was, you were that. So that's what He uses to send you undercover. Now, you're not undercover because He's bringing you in the light. You're coming in confessing right out the gates. But that story is what dims the light enough so that it doesn't blind them, and so that they can actually come through that to actually see His light. Does that make sense? So your story connects with those who feel like there's no way out. What you believe to be true is true for you, even if it's BS. So some of us are still believing lies about our past when God has already redeemed it. From A Course in Miracles, you're not bound by the past unless you choose to bring it with you. You're not bound by your past unless you choose to bring it with you. You bring it with you by judging it. And I'm talking about an unconscious bringing it with you. We're not carrying our past with us. We're carrying our story with us. So it's like the past is packaged in a story. So now once you package your past in a story, it's like Santa Claus. It's like a bag of gifts. But you set the bag of gifts down, and you're having your life, and anytime there's somebody, oh, you need my bag of gifts here. You see somebody who needs your story, you go back and pick up the bag of gifts and pull your story out and give it to the person. But you're not carrying that dang thing around everywhere. You're free from your story. You're free from your past. So you're not bound by the past unless you choose to bring it with you. You're bringing it with you if you don't have your story dialed in. If you have not shared your testimony of who you were and who you are, if you have that, the story of who you were, if you have not packaged that and sat it down, cool, there you go. Now you've laid it down and you can move on, and you've got that to use for God's glory anytime someone needs it. Does that make sense? And then you're free. All the weight's off your shoulders. So you bring the past, you're still covered in it. You're still carrying around, you're still covered in your story if you haven't taken it off and put it in the gift bag yet. And so how you stay stuck in it, how you're still bring it with you and carrying the weight of it with you, how you bring it with you is by judging it. How do you bring it with you? By judging it. You know you're judging it by the degree in which you're still hiding it. The degree in which you're still hiding it shows you the degree in which you're still judging it. I mean, we got Butthole Dan right here in the front row, man. I'm like, dude, Butthole Dan. How many people got set free at that first dang? Like, I remember, like a few remembers ago when he shared that, like, whoop, that was like the very first. And so y'all are watching online right now. What are you talking about, Butthole Dan? What do you mean? If you have not been, you will never understand what I'm talking about until you get to a Remember experience. So next one's coming up in May, rememberexperience.com. Get yourself down here to Remember Experience. But there's no way to possibly fathom what I'm talking about with Butthole Dan and how he set people, like literally he set the tone for the whole, and like just, and it's still living. Like it's still, people are getting set free ever since then. It's never stopped because of this story that he like, here, gift. He pulls this gift. He sets it. It was in him. He pulls it out of him. He sets it out, and he's like, look, here you go. There's a gift for everybody. Butthole Dan's story. It's one of the greatest gifts that he possibly could have given to our community. I mean, he does awesome stuff in the garden, and really great dude. But that story right there, that's setting souls free. All the work in the garden, cool. That's setting our bodies. That's really, we're getting our, we get our life. But this is about a soul or many souls. Oh, and we got veggie straw here. Like veggie straw right there in the second row. Oh my gosh, what a story. Yeah, thanks to Butthole Dan, we got veggie straw story. We would have never known about veggie straw if it wasn't for Butthole Dan. And again, y'all watching online, you get to remember. I'm telling you, it'll all make perfect sense when you get to remember. And Remember Experience is about remembering your true identity. But you can't ever get to your true identity unless you shed your old one. And so it's bring it all to the surface, bring it all out it. So how you get set free is you bring light into the darkness and bring the darkness into the light. Does that make sense? So you're not bound by your past unless you choose to bring it with you. You bring it with you by judging it. You know you're judging it by the degree in which you're still hiding it. You let it go by loving it. And you love it by letting it go out to bring others in. You love how you let your story go, how you let your past go is by loving your past. And if you love something, set it free. So you're holding on to your past by judging it. How you know you're judging it is by the degree in which you're still holding it in. What you call a secret, Satan calls home. And demons hide in what you're hiding. So when you bring it out, okay, let me do the whole journey here. You're carrying your past around if you're judging it. You got the weight of your past still on your shoulders if you're judging it. You know you're judging it by the degree in which you are not just freely sharing it. And how you get out of that judgment is by you loving it. And what does love mean? If you love something, set it free, let it go. So you let it come out. And you let it come out to bring others in. That's the whole purpose of it. Everybody following? You got that? If you're not doing that, see, it's literally God's, it's a gift for the people behind you. It's the greatest gift that God's using you to give to the people behind you. Was that story. But if you're still holding it in, there's still people that are getting held out. They're not going to come in because they don't think they can, because they think they're not enough. But when they hear your story, your testimony, they're like, well, daggone. Well, I'm fine. If Veggie Straw made it to the kingdom, I'm good. Butthole Dan's here, I'm good. What other good stories we got there? What is it? The Scissoring Sisters. The Scissor Me Timbers. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh goodness. Oh godness. We're gonna have to do a series just on the stories for God's glories. Oh, we got some good ones. We got some God ones here. Golly. I mean, I'm sure they're all over in the whole world, but nobody knows about the stories. Like they're hiding them all. I bet. Oh yeah, we got the mother. Oh goodness. Oh, we got the mother and the brother. Oh yeah, because the brother's on here too. The mother bumper and brother bumper. We got them all right here right now. And brother bumper would have never came out without mother bumper. Come on. People getting set free, y'all see it. Like, again, the people haven't been, remember, y'all know what I'm talking about. But the people who have know exactly what I'm talking about. And y'all are free because of it. Who knows what I'm talking about? Yeah, so. Your past is not a prison sentence. It is a testimony in the making. Mess plus age equals what? Message. So a mess is just an unaged mess. That's it. You want a message? Just age your mess. And the bigger the mess, the bigger the message. Come on. Now, I know this could trigger someone. Well, my mess isn't big enough. Yes, it is. It's fine. It's big enough. There's something deep and dark in there that you're not giving yourself enough credit for. You did some do. And if you'll just cough that fur ball up, you don't need to go getting in any more messes. You got plenty mess already. You're fine. Everybody say, I got plenty mess already. I got a big enough mess already to have a big enough message to make a story for God's glory. Everybody with me? So y'all don't need to be getting in the darkness no more. You did it. You're good. You got plenty to work with. Okay? I remember there was one girl came here. She's like, my mess isn't big enough yet. So then she brought in a dude that divorced her, got married for like I think she's like married for a day, and then the guy left and started videotaping little girls dancing around in little clothes, like not really. It's a Babylonian thing. It looks fine in Babylon, but like that's horrific. What's actually shining light on these little girls for predators. Crazy. And then he divorces her and just leaves. And I'm like, okay, great. You got a story now? Is that good? Like, you feel better now? It's like, okay. So, but she had plenty of story already, but she was refusing to use it. So if you refuse to use the story you got, cool, God will give you another. Satan will give you another one, and God will allow it to happen because come to me hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out. Maybe you hadn't suffered enough yet. Maybe you haven't figured out what love isn't enough yet. And so go ahead and go play in the darkness. Go get darker. Go get deeper and darker if you feel. But your mess is already big enough for a big message. You don't need to go any darker, any deeper. You're good. So, but feel free. If you want to love something, set it free. God loved us enough to let us go. If God's a loving God, how could there be a hell? Because he's such a loving God. If you love something, let it go. Set it free. That's how we know God is loving. He loves us enough to let us create a complete lie, to build our own kingdom that's the exact opposite of his. To take the full power of God and make a world that's the exact opposite of his. He loves us enough to let us go. There's plenty of people that think love is this codependent attachment, keeping somebody in a cage. I love you so much. And we had a dang hamster here the other day that a little girl, I love my little hamster. And she keeps it in the cage. And then that hamster got a chance to go jump off a cliff and kill itself to get out of that cage. Veggie Straw helped in that, right? It died. Yeah, it died by the chickens. Yeah. It leaped off the cliff to get its freedom. Freedom! I mean, I think I heard it. It was flying. Freedom! It's like, give me freedom or give me death, but I'm not going back in that cage. But I love my little hamster. You don't love your hamster sticking him in the cage. Get him out. So, anyway. So guilt and shame are illusions. God only sees his redeemed child. The more you surrender your past, the more powerfully God can use it. Revelation 12:11. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. So 3 ways to let God use your story. 1, stop hiding your testimony. Everybody say, I'm going to stop hiding my testimony. What you're ashamed of is what someone else needs to hear. Your story is the answer to someone's prayer that thinks there's no way out for them. But if they'll hear your testimony, if they'll hear your story, then they're going to have hope. If you came out, I can too. So everybody say, what I'm ashamed of is what someone else needs to hear. I mean, out there in the old world, people don't really get to witness this as much, but we see it. Like here at the village, like every Remember experience, I mean, just period, but especially at the Remember experiences, we see the freedom that unfolds when someone coughs up the furball, when they bring the darkness into the light, and then it's just like domino, brrr, people just liberation, brrr, all the darkness coming out of people, just boom, 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 like just instantaneous, like an explosion of darkness coming out of people, and then transmuting into a supernova of light. And you just feel this weightlessness because one person shares their story, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And the work that we're doing is not just for us here, but for all of humanity. It's healing from the womb to the tomb and beyond, for generations past and forward. It ends with us because we're bringing the darkness to the light. You don't deal with the darkness by denying it. You don't deal with the darkness by hiding it. That's how it's the darkness. You deal with the darkness by bringing the light into it, shining the light on it, bringing the darkness out into the light and bringing the light into the darkness. That's how you deal with it. Bring the light into the darkness and bring the darkness into the light. Everybody say that. How I deal with darkness is not by denying it. It's by bringing the light into it and bringing it into the light. Who's with me? Say, I am. So 1, stop hiding your testimony. 2, stay humble. Your after God story is not about you. Humble yourself. If you got it out, if you are all polished up out of the depth of the darkness, you didn't do that. It was impossible. There was a time where you were like, there's no way out of this. You felt hopeless. You felt helpless. And you were hopeless and helpless. You didn't get you out of that. God did. And so now that you're all shined up, that glory be to God. Because if you take the glory for that, all you're doing is setting yourself, pride cometh before a fall. You're setting the stage for even darker darkness than you came out of. Because you're now disconnecting yourself from the source in your own story. Because you made it about you. Everybody say, it's not about me. It's all about God. So your transformation is proof of His power, not your perfection. Everybody say that. My transformation is proof of His power, not my perfection. And number 3, speak to those still struggling. Don't just talk about where you are now. Talk about where you came from. Now, so when you, in the old world, people will talk about their problems to stay in their problems. That's not what I'm talking about. You're not using your story to lure in heroes for significance. It's not going to have the charge of, you're not in a victim mentality anymore. You're not using it to perpetuate your victimness. You're choosing it to show that you have been transformed. Look, I'm not this anymore. And I'm sharing this not for you to, and if you see, because in the past you would share the story to get some significance, some attention off of it, to get some codependent, needy people pleaser to come in and make you feel better about yourself. So, and to make you feel better about, I remember there was a woman that I met who, she was in the Chicken Soup for the Soul book, and she was blind, and she drove a car. And everybody's like, oh my God, this blind woman can drive. And I was hanging out with her, and then one day, I'm like, how are you even, I don't even understand how you drive. And then one day we were out at this property, and then the woman, she got her glasses on, her little stick, sunglasses, and then a stick. And she looks over, like way off in the distance on top of this tree. She's like, look at that bird. I'm like, that bird over there? It's like I can barely even see that bird. What the? You faking this whole time. Why was she? She was faking. The reason she could drive while she was blind was because she wasn't blind. She was faking, and everybody was just playing along with it because they didn't want to. It was like this. Don't say that she's not blind, because that's mean. Don't say that. You got to be politically correct. That would hurt her feelings. Her mom was in on it. Yeah. And they just played it. And so, like, I fell for it for a little while. I'm like, this doesn't even make any damn sense. And then I'm like, holy crap. Because a woman who drives, I mean, that is a miracle. A woman who can drive well, that's a miracle. That's a big deal. A woman who can drive well, that's a big deal. But no, it's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's just, that's pretty good. A woman who can drive good, that's pretty good. But it's not a miracle. That's not the most significant thing on the planet. But a blind woman who can drive, now, well, that's a miracle. That's impossible. That is worthy of going in a Chicken Soup for the Soul book. But a woman who can drive good, there's a few of those on the planet. Not a lot, but there's a few, so she wouldn't make it in the book. You know what I'm saying? Y'all with me? You've never seen it? You've never seen a woman? Okay, well, either. Kid. So what were we talking about? How do we get down there?
Don't talk about where you came from as a victim, but as a
Yeah. So you're not using your story for your significance and attention. You're using it for their salvation. You're using it to say, hey, you can come out. Look, I'm out. I'm telling you the story because I'm out of it. And if they're like, oh, God, poor you. No, that's not what I'm saying it for. No, not poor me. Like, I can now say, my brother died, and I love that. Like, that was like I went to hell. I became a broke, ignorant, blackout, drunk, atheist beach bum because when I was 12 years old, my brother died. When I'm holding my brother's hand, and he dies, and that disconnected me from God. And that was that was a horrible story. Poor victim, poor John, poor me and my family. But now I can share the story, and it brings people out of theirs. There's people online right now, I know that story brought them out of theirs. They didn't think they could come out had I not shared my brother's story. I can now say my brother died, and I love that. When I share the story, I could still feel the story. I could still share it with the emotion and everything to go in there. But if I can make it out, you can too. If I can make it out of that, you can make it out of that. If I can make it out of this, you can make it out of that. So, the parable of the broken vessel. A man carried water daily in 2 jars, one perfect and one cracked. The cracked jar felt worthless because it leaked. But over time, flowers grew along the path where the water dripped. The man smiled and said, I planted seeds, knowing your cracks would water them. You thought you were broken, but you were a blessing all along. I'm getting chills. Huh? Your cracks, your past mistakes, that's where God's power flows the most. What you thought was shameful is what He's using to bring life to others. I'm getting chills again. People need to hear about God many, many times before it's the time. Sometime it'll be the time. But those seeds need to be sowed and need to be watered. So maybe somewhere along the path, this person got seeds of God sowed into them. But your story is what watered those seeds. Like, wow, this God thing maybe it is real then. Your cracks, that's where God was leaking out and watering people that had seeds that had already been sown, but they couldn't get the revelation of God until they heard your story. So everyone say, I'm not ashamed of my awful story. I'm using it to highlight his awesome glory. My testimony is proof that God transforms people. My story is not about me. It's about the people who still need him. My past is my platform to show the world how awesome my God is. Let's close our eyes and pray. Deep breath in. Let it all go. God, we thank you so much for bringing us out of the darkness and into the light. And then I thank you so much for bringing our darkness out of us and into the light. And I thank you so much for using our darkness to bring others into the light. If we don't want our pain to be in vain, we turn our mess into a message. Thank you for showing us this. Thank you for picking the bottom of the barrel to build your kingdom with. Thank you for the story of Jesus. Thank you for the story of Mary Magdalene, the whore with 7 demons. Thank you for the story of all the disciples that were just screwing up the whole time. Thank you for even showing us how Jesus was with these people for years, and he would go up to the mountain, talk with you, and then come back down and be like frustrated about how they still don't get it. These disciples that were with Jesus for years, they still didn't get it. It's like, dang, how many times I got to tell you all this? Y'all are still quarreling, fighting with each other. Thank you for showing us the humanity and the humility that's not a problem for you. It's not a problem that we don't get it. It's not a problem that we were once a problem, or that we still are a problem. None of that is a problem for you. Thank you for showing that. Thank you for giving us the greatest story of all time, the story of grace. How light came into the darkness and made himself darkness to become the way out. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me out. And thank you for using me to bring others out. Using my story to bring others out. My story is not a problem. My past is not a problem. You transmute it. Satan meant it for evil, but you use it for good. All things work for good for those who believe and are called according to his purpose. I'm on purpose, God. I believe in you, and I'm being used by you. And so all the bad in my life is now transmuted and transformed and transfigured into goodness and godness. On earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so your past is not a mistake. It's a ministry. Let God use your story for his glory. So I'll go over the key takeaways. Your past is not something to hide. It's something God wants to use. The worse your BG story is, the greater his glory is when you then share your AG story. Jesus never avoided sinners. He transformed them. Your testimony is proof of God's power, not proof of your perfection. Guilt and shame are illusions. God sees only redemption. Speak to those still struggling. Your story could be their way out. Declare, my past is my platform. Say it out loud. My past is my platform. My story is for his glory. So it's time to stop hiding and start testifying. Your past is not your prison. It's proof of God's power. Thank you all. I love you all. I appreciate you. Who you are makes a difference. The world is a much better place because you exist. Thank you for being you. Thank God for you. Thank God for us. If you haven't joined our Exit Babylon challenge yet, it's free. It's a 40-day challenge. We're going through it right now in the village, and many people, we've just started. Last I checked, there's like 390 people that have registered for the challenge in the past week. And it's awesome. It's transforming people's lives. So just go to exitbabylon.org, get plugged into that. We've also got the Off-Grid Dream Life event coming up in just a few days on the, I don't remember the date. Just go to offgriddreamlife.com and you'll see the dates for it. It's a free event as well. And it's going to, if you're ready to get out of Babylon for real, physically, and get yourself into a Garden of Eden style world, God's kingdom, go there, and that's going to give you a path to come on out. So offgriddreamlife.com. We are a nonprofit for-purpose organization here. So we do you don't vote at the polls, you vote with your dollar bills. Put your money where your values are. If you got healing from this message, if you have ever been to our village, experienced any of the things that we give out there into the world, vote for it, because every dollar that you donate we use to actually be able to continue sharing these messages and actually to continue literally building God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So children of God have a place to come be children of God where they don't have to hustle and grind and fight to protect themselves. They can actually be free in a divine dome to where they can grow and expand. So go to bridgebucksbank.com and make a donation there. As Jesus said, where man's treasure is, there his heart will be also. Once you make the donation, on the thank you page, there's an opportunity for you to join our private membership association, which is an auxiliary of our 508, so the body of Christ. And so once you sign that PMA, now you're a member of the body, and then you can have your own kingdom account to where you can start receiving donations from others. You start developing your gift, giving your gift to the world, and start receiving donations, tax-free donations, so you don't need to pay taxes anymore, because then you'd be voting for the beast if you keep doing that. So this gives you a way to be perfectly in alignment with God, and then you can move your assets out of Babylon and move them into the Bridgebucks Bank, which B-A-N-K is not Old World Bank. B-A-N-K is an acronym, beliefs aligned with natural kinship. It's a PMA. It's not an Old World Bank. That's a acronym. So, but it functions where you can move your assets into the kingdom. So do that, and is that it? Or if you're watching online, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment. If you're watching live, make sure that you go find this online and share it with the world. Also, go to earthwakingvillage.com and plug in. That's our virtual village. You can find us every Sunday at 10:30 Centered Time, Costa Rica time at Centered. We don't change when the crazy changing goes out there. The double-minded world of Babylon that's going, no, we're at 9:30. No, now we're 10:30. I don't even know what we are. And so we stay centered here. So 10:30 Centered Time. We are always here. And you can, if you go to earthwakingvillage.com, you can find the Zoom link and plug in with us live, or find your way to the village physically. So anything else? Did I get everything? All right, well, love you, appreciate you. Who you are makes a difference. The world is a much better place because you exist. Thank you for being you. Thank God for you. Thank God for us. Go team, rise, remnant, rise. And always remember that your story is for God's glory.